In the decades following the war, millions of tons of steel and concrete poured across the Japanese archipelago. This physical transformation created a new industrial reality, characterized by a level of construction speed that few nations had ever attempted. Prime Minister Kakuei Tanaka stood as the singular mastermind behind this expansion. His remodeling the Japanese archipelago policy served as the blueprint for the nation's physical future, establishing him as the most powerful figure in government. This vision materialized into thousands of miles of new highways and the expansion of the high-speed Shinkansen rail network. These projects bridged previously isolated islands and funneled economic and political power directly into the center of the country. By physically bulldozing Japan into the future, Tanaka accumulated a level of independent authority that bypassed traditional power structures. While his policies reshaped the landscape, public history remembers Tanaka for the 1976 Lockheed bribery scandal. The case centered on millions of dollars allegedly paid by the American aerospace firm to secure the sale of their L-1011 TriStar jets. The accepted historical consensus celebrates his arrest as a moment of triumph for a clean legal system, proving that even the most powerful politician was not above the law. However, the investigation relied on a legally fabricated script designed specifically to eliminate a political maverick who had become too difficult to control. This raises a question about the nature of the Japanese justice system. Why would an objective legal institution manipulate its own procedures to execute a targeted political hit job? Financing a nationwide remodeling required astronomical sums of money. This independent power base directly threatened the old guard of the political establishment. Rivals like Teikyo Miki represented a cautious, entrenched faction that viewed Tanaka's momentum as a fundamental risk to their control. Because Tanaka's infrastructure projects made him immensely popular with the public, he could not be defeated at the ballot box. His rivals required an alternative, extrajudicial weapon to neutralize him. Tanaka's grand vision didn't just build roads, it created powerful, entrenched enemies who eventually turned to a legal loophole to stop his rise. The Special Investigation Squad bypassed standard bribery charges to deploy the obscure foreign exchange law. This allowed the prosecution to target Tanaka using a legal mechanism rarely applied to domestic political cases. To build their case, prosecutors struck legally questionable immunity deals with American Lockheed executives. These agreements forced the executives to provide testimony against Tanaka in exchange for protection from prosecution. This process introduced a concept known as the scenario of guilt. As the diagram shows, prosecutors establish a rigid narrative of the crime before analyzing the evidence, creating a predetermined path toward a conviction. This pre-written script filters the entire investigation. Any evidence that contradicts the state's narrative is discarded, while forced testimony is aggressively fitted into the scenario to ensure the story remains intact. The prosecution acted as authors of a predetermined tragedy, scripting the outcome of the case before the investigation had even begun. Investigators used aggressive marathon interrogations to break down their subjects. The goal was to force a psychological surrender, compelling individuals to admit to the state's pre-written version of events. This was paired with a media strategy, where cherry-picked, out-of-context information was leaked to the press. These leaks poisoned public opinion, making a guilty verdict socially inevitable long before the trial reached a courtroom. By manufacturing a narrative to achieve a political execution, the legal system successfully preserved the establishment's control over the government. This playbook remains the standard operating procedure for the establishment when dealing with modern mavericks. In 2006, the state targeted a brash tech entrepreneur named Takafumi Horie. His company, LiveDoor, was at the center of a financial scandal that paralyzed the nation's tech sector. Operating out of Roppongi Hills in the Mori Tower, Horie built a massive corporate empire that aggressively challenged Japan's rigid and traditional business hierarchies. The prosecution of Horie mirrored the tactics used against Tanaka decades earlier. Investigators relied on media leaks, pre-written scenarios of guilt, and targeted arrests to crush his disruptive momentum. The system responds with an identical pattern regardless of the era, attacking anyone who accumulates significant power outside the accepted norms of the elite. Today, Tanaka's vision of a modernized, high-speed Japan is a physical reality. However, the state successfully branded his individual legacy with a permanent sense of criminal guilt. These high-profile prosecutions function as a mechanism for the ruthless maintenance of the status quo. In a system that mandates social and political harmony, the ultimate crime is disruption. Attempting to remodel the system often ensures that the system will eventually remodel you.